It's time to talk about the Cavs as the season is starting up, and I got Cam Justice on deck ready for y'all to talk about this season, talk about the things you can be excited for, talk about the things you should look forward to. But before we do that, I want to talk to you about today's sponsor, DraftKings. Hey, basketball fans, we've been waiting all summer, and the time is finally here for teams to match up and hit the court. Today, I'm partnering up with DraftKings Sportsbook, and they have an exciting offer. All new customers who bet $5 will get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings app and sign up using my promo code CavsBurner only at DraftKings. That's right. New customers can bet just $5 on any basketball game and get $200 in bonus bets. Stay in on the action and use the $200 in bonus bets on DraftKings same game parlays for a shot at even bigger payouts. Combine multiple bets together from the same game, including player points, rebounds, assists, etc. If you're already signed up for DraftKings, no problem. All customers get a no sweat same game parlay. If your bet doesn't hit, max reward limits apply. It's been a while, but I always like to have Cam on to talk about these Cavaliers. A lot has changed, but not the big stuff, right, with the Cavs team. A lot of just adjustment around the edges, and I think that's where they are with their rebuild, right? I think last year wasn't what a lot of people thought it was going to be, where people thought this was going to be like the coming out party. I think last year was just the proof that this direction can go somewhere, right? That Evan Mobley and Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell are good enough to have a legitimately good NBA team, a legitimate playoff NBA team around. You figured that out. What you did not figure out, which, look, building a team is a multi-year process. And I don't think enough people thought about that. But what did they not think about was, hey, after that, okay, we know Darius Garland. He's really good. That's not a fluke anymore. We gave him his money. He played good that year. We're not worried about DG anymore. We're not worried if it was just 1 year or whatever. Evan Mobley continues to progress. We feel good about that. Donovan Mitchell looked fine last year. I mean, looked really good at points last year. Now it's about, okay, what do these guys need around them? Because they were still operating with a mismatch of parts that were from the post-LeBron era. Right, on this Cavs team. It was still like Jetty Osman randomly here and there. You know, Ricky Rubio was kicking it around there. I think he's still here. But it wasn't a team that was like, hey, we know what we're good at. We know specifically how we can beat teams, and we know how teams are going to counter us. So we know where we need to build around. This reminded me a lot of like the first 6 months of LeBron coming back to Cleveland, where it was like somewhat of the team you remember because it was still Kyrie, Kevin Love, and LeBron. But then you forget weird stuff like Dion Waiters still being in the starting lineup, or that Anderson Varejao was on the team at that point in time, right? Like we forget about the awkward transition that it took. Remember when Timothy Mozgov was a legitimately important piece to the Cavs rotation? It took until halfway through that 2016 season for that core to stabilize and be truly custom built for what that LeBron team was going to be. It took a year and a half. Two coaches. It took a year and a half and two coaches to really be like, okay, we're going to have J.R. Smith here, and then we're going to have Iman Shumpert off the bench. And then all of a sudden, the same core that we saw from 2016, 17, and 18 until they blew it up that last year in 19, that was it. That was the championship core. The Cavs are trying to tinker here and figure things out. We're on the Andy Varejao still starting on the team portion of the rebuild.
Transitioning outside of it into something that works. You're right. Yep.
So what have you seen from the new additions on this Cavs team so far? And who do you think of these new guys is the most intriguing as far as like, who will be ready right now, and who are you looking at for like, hey, in like 2 years, that's going to be really important that they made that choice?
I think for me, like the two guys, and they seem like the most obvious additions because they're the biggest additions. that I'm looking at as this could be really good for the Cavs. Max Strus and George Niang. Like they're the two biggest additions, the two big name guys. But to be honest, like that, I say that because of what they can provide and what was missing from the Cavs when you went through the depth, when you went through their lineups and you get to the bench, right? Cedi Osman, it was a guy that I think it felt like he was going to be traded at any given point after 2018, right? Like he could have been traded any year and he wasn't. And it felt like, okay, that's a piece that needs to be switched up. They need to address that. And I think they were lacking, obviously, in 3-point ability off the bench, in just shooting in general off the bench. I think George Niang is a guy that allows you to expand what you're able to do and space the floor out throughout your lineup. Like you don't have to just rely on Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland, and when they are not in the game, because you had your issues with your small forward as well. But like when they're in the game, you know that you're probably going to be playing the way that you want to play. But once they're out, then it's where do we go from here? Can we do it? Are we going to have a good game from them? I think there's stability now. And the shooting to me is really the big additions for that, and the ability to space the floor out, and Max Strus does that too. And so I think that those two pieces, the ability to score in different ways, score from outside, score from deep, have a spot up shooter that you can just get the ball to and he's probably going to catch it and shoot it and you're in a good spot. That's what these additions are for me. And then I would say, as much as I don't know that he's going to play regularly and maybe he will because of injury or depth or anything like that, but like Tristan Thompson, you can't devalue what he can bring. Like you just, experience aside, I think as a center, the Cavs have had a toughness issue. They've had the grittiness issue from the bigs. And I think Tristan Thompson could really boost that and show them, hey, this is how you're tough in the paint. This is how you crash the boards. Let's have some fire. That's what I like for him.
I think it's a very underrated signing. I think everybody kind of laughed at it when it first happened, and it is kind of funny because, like, oh, Tristan Thompson's back. We got to always have a 2016 member of the team on the rock. I get it. But one of this team's biggest problems is that they're tall on the interior. They're not big. And big is a mindset sometimes, right? Jared Allen don't really he's not a big in that way. He's a tough guy, but he's not the big. He's not a bully right down there. Yeah. Same thing will be obvious, is even more obvious with Evan Mobley. He's not built to be like that physically. Not at this point of his career. Yeah. So you bring in Tristan Thompson, and from day one of his career, that's been what Tristan Thompson has been. He's been Mr. 10 and 10, right? Get the 10 rebounds, get the 10. I remember I had a joke going with he's more likely to get you 20 and 10 by getting 20 rebounds and 10 points than 20 points and 10 rebounds. That's how Tristan operates. And what you had that got exposed a little bit against that New York team in that New York series was you had no ability to adjust to New York, right? Because people were blaming JB Bickerstaff. I've confused him with his dad. JB, Dad. Yeah. But people were upset at him for not adjusting. But I'm like, how do you adjust when Robin Lopez is legitimately the only piece that you can kind of move in there and out? And the issue with Robin Lopez wasn't that he couldn't shoot. That's one problem. Sure, Robin Lopez can't shoot. He's not good for spacing, whatever. But the bigger problem with Robin Lopez was them feet was slow, right? He could not. If you put him in space, he was cooked. It didn't matter that he was huge, right? And that's where you bring in Tristan, who's more of a, he's not the biggest guy in the world, but I've never seen Tristan get bullied in an NBA game, right? He's always been able to hold his ground. And against somebody like Mitchell Robinson, who was able to get his success mainly off of being larger and being more energetic towards the boards. Now, if you're in that situation and you're JB, okay, I'm going to put Tristan in. And Tristan gonna get 20 minutes this series, right? He might not see the court the next series, but he's gonna get 20 minutes for this series. And it brings you a diversity in play style that allows you to adjust to opponents. I felt like that was the biggest problem with the roster, was that they could not adjust. If it wasn't the DG and Donovan Mitchell show, it wasn't gonna win, right? They had no ability to adjust. And look, that style is very good. DG Donovan, that got you 50 wins. You know what I mean? Like, you can go far with that, but you got to be able to adjust. You got to be able to say, okay, we're not going to be able to create a ton of dribble penetration because the way that they're playing us. All right, cool. They're going to crash inside. We're going to kick it out to our spot shooters, which we had no spot shooters last year. And we're going to be able to do that. When you're relying on Cedi Osman, no disrespect, when you're relying on Cedi Osman and Karis LeVert to be your best two spot shooters, you have no spot shooters. You have no spot shooting threat. When, God bless him, Isaac Okoro has to be your 3-and-D man, has to take so many spot up threes. When he's not a spot up shooter, it's not going to give what you want it to give on that side of the ball. And now they have legitimate spot shooters, right? George Niang, he's somebody who can get in a spot, make an open three. You got Max Strus. That's what he's brought here to do as well. It's just it's a evolution of building blocks on top of problems. We only had not Donovan Mitchell. We only had Darius Garland and Jared Allen 1 year. Okay, here's what we're gonna do. We can only score. We need to bring in Karis LeVert. Somebody needs to be able to dribble, pass, and shoot off the bench. Okay, that's not enough. You bring in Donovan Mitchell. That seems to be enough. You got enough dribble penetrators. You almost had too many, right? Where it was causing problems with the offense last year because nobody could spot up shoot. Got some spot up shooters. Okay. You got some beef in the backcourt, in the front court. Okay, cool. I think you need more in those areas still. Like, it would be nice if a Imani Bates can develop. It'd be nice if a Isaac Okoro can develop. You still need more. Like, you're not set. This is not an overwhelming roster. I don't think you're sweeping the Milwaukee Bucks in the first round with this team. But it's a more complete roster. And it's little tinkering, right? You see this with the Denver Nuggets. Little tinkering. Okay, that didn't work. You know what? We're going to bring in Jeff Green. Why? Because Jeff Green's who we need, right? We're going to bring in Bobby Brown or Bruce Brown or whatever, you know what I mean? And he's going to be a guy that we can use in the series, and we can have this piece here and that piece here. And eventually you accumulate enough pieces, enough different ways to win that you become a very, very difficult team to beat in the playoffs. And the teams that do that are the teams that go far. The teams that don't, they plateau. Look at Philadelphia. They've been trying to win one way for a very long time, and it ain't happening.
Not working. I think that the Cavs they put themselves in a really good position to start the season, right? This is the thing, the additions that they made, the guys we talked about, the ones that are standing out to me are things that they clearly needed throughout the season, and especially leading into the playoffs and what got them knocked out in that first round. These were the reasons, these were the issues that were glaring, and there has been a very specific effort to correct those things, kind of add those pieces, tinker, like you said. But again, I think it also allows you to see what these guys are going to be able to do. Like, is Max Strus going to be able to be that reliable guy all season? Can you call on George Niang and not just have him off the bench, but like, is he going to be a guy that can like really contribute for you? And I think you've got guys that these guys have the ability to do that and to play like meaningful minutes in different roles. And everyone is understanding that the roles might shift a little bit, but it gets you in a position where you see what this can do, you see how this can develop. And then as the season goes on, if this isn't what you need, if it's more than that, if it's something else, that you still have the ability to go out and kind of play around some more. I think this roster is really open to flexibility and the understanding that they have a team that obviously can get to the playoffs, but how can we address it to move deeper through the playoffs? This isn't a team that went out and signed a bunch of giant names again. Like, it wasn't huge splashes, but it was, I think, enough done to ensure that they have what they didn't have last year that halted what could have been a playoff run. And I'm in the camp of, when you're in the playoffs, anything can happen. Like, I think if you are a team that can get there, you're a team that can upset. You're a team that can make a push. Can you make the finals? I feel like in the NBA, there's really set teams that you kind of just, that they're probably going to make it, right? But if you can get there, you can upset. Miami, prime example, like they got there, they were upsetting. They made a push. They found what they needed. And I think the Cavs could have been that if these pieces were there. If they weren't out physical by the Knicks, if Jared Allen had more played bigger, if Evan Mobley had some more weight on him, if they had a guy like Tristan Thompson plug in there in a series like that and not let you get bullied, I think that series would have gone differently. And then who knows what would happen from there. They didn't have that. They have that now. And I think there's a lot of promise. Really exciting because of these pieces and knowing what they did last year. Now it's just about JB Bickerstaff, and this is another thing that I'm looking forward to this year, is to see how his coaching can take another step ahead, how he's able to work out these rotations, maybe add some more guys to it, and the lineups that he goes with on a nightly basis, what he's going to do, and how he increases his ability as a coach. I think that's another missing piece of he's very, very good with getting the guys invested and having them play well and the personal part of it, right? He's so good with players. Now I want to see JB Bickerstaff take the leap of being a very good coach when it comes to decision making, to what he does when a player is injured or out and like just needs the rest, how he's going to adjust his lineups, how he's going to move from, all right, we're going to play a little smaller today, or like, we're really going to go big, we're going to like focus on this. How is he going to piece that together? And how is he going to maybe go with a deeper rotation than he necessarily might have wanted to, but how can he play with that and how can he be successful in it? I'm really looking at JB Bickerstaff to take a leap as a coach this year. I think this is his time to show that he can not only coach the players on the court, but he can do it on paper and he can do it strategically and kind of go against some of these teams that have proven coaches that are making really good decisions out there for it.
All right, so I got 2 questions before you head out. First one, of these 3 players, which one do you think is most likely to crack the rotation at some point this year? Sam Merrill, Ty Jerome, Imani Bates.
Ooh, I think Ty Jerome is the first one to crack the roster. I think Imani Bates is, I think they like the rotation. I think that Ty Jerome, he's been very impressive. They really like him. And I think that he has a very good shot of kind of getting in there earlier than some. I think Imani Bates is one that he has a ton of talent and they want him around the team. That 2-way contract is going to be huge, like bouncing back and forth. But how much time does he play? I don't know how much they want to weigh into his development. I know they really want to work with him as a person and a player. So I wouldn't, all 3 of them could see minutes. It wouldn't surprise me. And JB Bickerstaff said that, he did want to go maybe a little deeper in his rotation this year, especially early on, just kind of figuring out what they've got. But Ty Jerome is he's a guy that I know that they've been like, okay, we might have something here. So he would be my number 1, Imani Bates, number 2, and then Sam at number 3. I gave you didn't ask for an order. I gave you an order.
Appreciate the order. All right. The next question is who likeliness that these players survive the trade deadline. All right. For each one, Karis LeVert, Dean Wade, Isaac Okoro, Tristan Thompson.
Harris, I feel like survives.
So over 50.
Over 50% that he makes it through the trade deadline, stays on the team. I do think like they like him too. And I think he's had some really good moments. Obviously there's been times whether it was the injury or just kind of in a slump where he's got a little cold, but he's shown that he can really help this team in different ways. So I like Karis to stay. I think I'm skipping one, but I'll say Isaac Okoro I think he's at the 50% for me. He's at the
The
50%, like right
the
in the middle. Like,
problem with him is his size. Like he's just not the extra 2 inches he needs to be in order to be really the same level of effective against wings that he is against guards.
he has the potential to be a really good asset defensively. His shooting has been so frustrating at times, and I think he's had a lot of opportunities to grow, and it wouldn't surprise me if it was like, okay, well, this isn't really benefiting us in the long run. We don't see this being more beneficial than less. So I would say 50 on him. I think it depends on how the season starts. Like what he's done in the offseason, to me, size wise, you can't. I mean, you can maybe wear some implants, but
He can't grow, and I think that's
can't grow
for the fit on this roster, because I do think you could trade him somewhere. He'll be fine, and he'll be a good player for somebody that needs a really good backcourt defender. Maybe Milwaukee or somebody like to just trade it for like Dame, like a smaller point guard that could score that they don't have anybody who could really defend that same way. He'll be good there. But when you're already playing Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland, you really just don't have the need for Isaac unless he's at the 3. And he has the game of somebody who, if he were just 6'8", I don't think we would be as worried about him. But since he's not 6'8", and that affects his ability to run and cut to the rim and dunk and do some of the bigger guy stuff that we know athletically he's capable of, but size-wise, he's just not able to replicate it time in and time out. It just, like, he could be Robert Covington from like 2017, right? When he was he could be Robert Covington. Robert Covington was an okay 3-point shooter and a fine enough slasher where you got away with stuff and a really good defender. Well, he's just not the same size. And I think that's his biggest problem. Since he's not that same size, he can't get super heavy, which means that you can't use him in certain rotations to handle some bigs, which means that, you're very limited with how you use him. And I think that's going to be something that he's going to have to figure out how he can overcome, because I think that height, it's crazy to talk about somebody being 6'5" and too small, but that's the world we live in the NBA. But he's undersized at that position. And I think that's his biggest problem. And we keep beating around the bush with it, especially people who really want this Isaac thing to work. And I'm one of them. But I can't keep ignoring what's obvious, which is he needs 3 inches of height. And I just don't think they're coming. And maybe somebody is willing to trade for that. And I just see that coming in there. What about Dean Wade?
Dean Wade, I think, I would be closer to like 60, 70, maybe even 80% likely that he's available for trade. They liked him enough to bring him back, right? And they see something in him. It's just, it hasn't gotten where it needs to go. And no, I don't know what you would get for him too, because he's not given a track record that gives him a lot of a high level of value where you're going to get something substantial. But I think a lot of the issues that like fans had specifically, that not necessarily the team has, but like the minutes that he would get, could that go to somebody else who had more promise or could give you more production? Dean Wade was not giving the kind of production that he needed to do, even in a smaller role, right? Like I think that signing him and bringing him back, I think they have enough to work with that he would be good as trade value and allow you to open up a roster spot, especially as they get into things and like they're playing with the rotations and they want to see guys get more minutes and bring in different guys. Some of these new guys that they added, giving them more substantial minutes. At some point, there might not be a need for him. There might just not be a need. And giving his minutes away to somebody could mean, all right, well, we're going to give his minutes away. Let's trade him. So I would put him on the high end just because I don't think that he's produced the way that needs to happen for him to keep this spot. He's so on the fringe anyway that I think that he feels like a fit to kind of open up what they're looking for and how they're gonna give guys looks and time on that court.
Yeah, and bringing in George Niang just like was kind of a telltale sign of like, oh, okay, they're trying not to play him for this many minutes. All right. And I only throw Tristan Thompson in here because it seems like every year there's a trade and Tristan Thompson gets thrown into it. Like every year. He is like the most traded guy in the NBA.
He has just been a little journeyman, just going all over the place. He was when they signed him. I was like, wait, where did he? Okay, where did he? He was in the Lakers. Okay, but then he was in he was at the Kings.
You ought to read Tristan's history. So 2020, he left the Cavs. He went to the Boston Celtics. He was there for a year. Then he goes to the Sacramento Kings. 2022, he's on the Kings to start. He gets traded to the Pacers. He ends up on the Bulls. And then the next year he's with the Lakers. Now he's with the Cavs. Like,
he's been all over the place since he left.
Yeah,
he's just
Tristan, like I think because he got a good contract at one point. I don't even think it's for that 2016 contract anymore because that's been up. Like he just always gets thrown in these trades for whatever reason.
And that's like based on the recent track record for him, I would say there's a high probability just because like he's been all over the place. But like we talked about before, I think what gives him on the lower end of not being traded and of being, I think that he could be a really big key piece to this team, not even necessarily in what he does on the court, but just what he brings to this team and what he can like inspire out of the bigs like Evan Mobley and Jared Allen. I think that is something that is, you can't measure what that could do. And I think that he could be of really good value to this team. So if his impact is felt in that room and what he's able to kind of get out of these guys as that veteran, talking to them, coaching them up on the side and like showing them what they can do and how to use their size, I think that you don't trade somebody who can do that for you. Now, if it's not doing a lot, right? Like if he's trying, but nothing's really changed and it's that physicality, that toughness, the bullying guys if that's not happening at some point, then it's like, oh, okay, well, we tried. We wish you the best. Thanks for your efforts in getting our guys to play to that level, but everyone trades you, so it's time to go. I think I can see that, but I would say if he's able to do what I think that he could do for this team, that's something that you don't get rid of. You keep that on the roster and let these guys learn from him and let him kind of influence and sprinkle his wisdom and his abilities through the guys that need it the most.
Hey, this team loves pick and roll. Let me tell you, there's one offensive concept that Tristan Thompson had down. That was pick and roll back in the day.
Oh man, let me tell you, him and Delly, the pick and roll, him and Delly, thing of beauty.
Yeah, and then Tristan always had that weird dunk that looks like he never grasps the basketball at all. He just kind of like lightly dunks it in there. It's time to return that. I don't know if he can get up like he used to. It's crazy to talk about Tristan Thompson as an older player because you realize when you do that, you have to talk about Kyrie the same way because they were in the same draft class. But like, it's kind of true. Like, oh, these guys aren't young anymore. Like,
not young, but it makes you feel old. You're like, wait a minute. No, he's 32 and we're talking about him like he's 45.
Yep. I mean, like I tell everybody, the day LeBron retires will be the day I officially am cooked. Like the day that happens is like I'm cooked. I'm old now. I'm gonna just let it go. Yeah, I'm gonna shave my head bald and everything. Be like, you know what? I'm done. Like LeBron's retired. I remember when he had all the youngest two stats. Like. But Cam, thank you for coming on, talking a little Cavs with us. Nice change of pace from all the stuff going on with the football team at this moment, at least. So always good to talk about that. Hopefully this team does a better job of living up to some of the higher expectations that we got for them from the end of the season this year. Any final? Oh, okay. We'll end on this. We'll be messy for like 2 seconds.
Oh,
Donovan Mitchell trade percentage. Where are you at with it?
Oh no, trade percentage low. I'm low on the trade percentage because I do think they want to keep him. It's just like, can they? Are they going to be able to sign him long term? Is that something that he wants? That's up in the air. But I know that like him as a person, he is super dedicated. No matter what people think, no matter whatever jersey he's wearing or whatever hat he's wearing, like that has nothing to do with what he gives on the court. And or even how much he wants to be in a city. So I'm not ruling out, like he said it wouldn't happen until next summer. Okay, fine. We'll have to wait and see. But I think the Cavs would probably still want to hold out hope that is something that could get done. So I don't think you trade him. You can't trade him.
This is a man who played in Salt Lake City and only wanted out after Rudy gave him the virus. Okay? Like, he was fine in Salt Lake City for like 4 years. And then Rudy gave him COVID and then he was fine with it. And then they lost again and that's when he wanted out. So I think that the precedent's been set. Donovan's going to go wherever he feels like puts him in the best position to be successful. If that's Cleveland, it's Cleveland. If it's not, it's not. But it's up to, Evan Mobley, Darius Garland, and, Kobe Altman or whoever's running the team now to do what they can to make sure that that's the case for him. And if it is, I think that'll be a compelling enough argument to where you can reasonably have hopes of keeping him. I don't think this is I got to go to New York no matter what, or LeBron in 2010, I'm teaming up with my homeboys kind of a situation. There doesn't really seem like, as much as we talk about Donovan Mitchell leaving, there's no clear landing spot like there was with even like a Damian Lillard to Milwaukee, well, not Milwaukee, but Miami, which turned into Milwaukee, right? Like, for these things to be done deals, like people are talking about them, point to the landing spot and tell me where it looks like a done deal there, because people keep pointing to New York or Boston. And I'm like, those don't look like landing spots to me. Like New York especially makes no sense. For them to go at, because you will probably have to get rid of some people and you'll be very backcourt heavy, and that's not how they want to play basketball. Like, it doesn't make sense for a Tom Thibodeau team to go for that. So I just don't think that landing spot's there like people want it to be. And I don't think that the Boston one's there like people want it to be. Maybe people are saying Brooklyn. Like, I don't know. That doesn't make much sense to me either. Seems like more of a lateral to downward move. And I don't think he's somebody who's like, I got to be in New York that bad. Again, he's from upstate New York. That's not the same as like Midtown New York. He's not from like the Bronx or nothing like that. Nope. Yeah.
And there's players like that all the time that have that passion. They love a city. It's home for them. I think New York is home for him. He loves the city. But like Kevin Love, to me, like Kevin Love talked for all the time about going to Portland, playing in Portland.
He never played in Portland.
But it didn't happen. And like, it doesn't always, there's not always, like you said, there's not always a clear path to get there. So if there's not a clear path, then you don't know what the future holds. And I don't think that Donovan Mitchell has not come out and said, I don't want to play in Cleveland. This is my last year, because that's not how he feels. And he doesn't feel like he doesn't want to play in Cleveland. So with that said, if a guy is, let's see what happens. I don't think you can put him in a position where you're saying, there's no way he's coming back. I think the Cavs have every opportunity to make a case for him to stay. And now it's about waiting to see what this year looks like and what they're able to do to entice him to stay, and how much it makes sense for him to stay on this team moving forward. But so no, low end on the trade. Back to the question, low end on the trade, because I think there's a lot of hope that he may be here longer than just this year.
I always bring this up when people talk about like, oh my God, people got to leave Cleveland, because like they project all of their negative feelings about the city onto like what athletes are thinking about them. LeBron left the Cavs because the Cavs had a terrible roster around him. And then he left Miami to come to Cleveland when the Cavs had a good roster to put around him. Like, maybe it wasn't about his personal feelings about the city. Maybe it was because Miami had D Wade, and
other D Wade,
D Wade and Chris Bosh. I don't know. Maybe that had something to do with it. And I feel like that had a lot more to do with it than anything else. Now, when LeBron went to LA, we know what that was about. That was about Maverick Carter and all that, all of his other interests. And also you can get Anthony Davis, and the core had fell apart in Cleveland by that time, right? Like, Kevin Love was not Kevin Love anymore at that point. So, these are usually basketball decisions. I would like to tell basketball fans. Giannis will stay in Milwaukee. Why? They got Dame. Don't nobody got Dame and Chris Middleton, right? These are usually basketball decisions that are going to be made about basketball futures. And tell me and for Donovan Mitchell, the question is going to be, what team has a better core for me to play around than a team that has Evan Mobley and Darius Garland? And if they keep developing and get better, it's going to be a very hard thing to compete with for the NBA teams. If they don't, then hey, maybe somebody can swoop in there and take you from it. But that says more about those two and the situation around them. Or it might be a situation where like Evan and Darius outgrow the need for Donovan Mitchell to be on the team. And Donovan don't got a place on this team anymore, right? That's definitely happened in the NBA before. So, you just got to see how these things play out. I think a lot of people are making definitive conclusions about something that even the people making the decisions have no idea what they're going to do.
100%.
So
no definitive here.
Yeah. But that's my thoughts about that. It's Cam's thoughts about that. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Cam, thank you for coming on, talking Cavs with us. Definitely got to make sure we have you on often this year. Just to hopefully if one thing's going right, the other thing's going right at the same time. Like hopefully they just don't leave us hanging. Like the Browns be bad and the Cavs bad at the same time.
I know.
Hopefully, we get one or the other. You know what I mean?
Or both. Maybe we have a nice little push and we get both good at the same time. That would be nice. That would be
We
ideal.
can sacrifice the Guardians and just have good fortune for the other
We don't have to think about them right now. We don't have to think about them right now.
It's gonna be rough. Tito ain't dead no more. But y'all have a good one. Everybody else, have an even better night.